Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second rule of engagement. Start with a hook. And we are greeting Mr. J. Mr. J, how are you feeling today? And while you are talking, I'm just going to check the technicality. So you have the mic.
Yeah, well, actually, it's oh my goodness. I had a rough night. I don't know if I caught a stomach bug or something, but I just wasn't feeling well, and stayed up all night. Um, so but that never deters me from showing up for people, making sure that I'm there, um, because I think it's important to live up to not only obligations but partnerships. If you decide that you need to work with somebody uh, to help get the message out, whatever message is that you have, whether it be your brand, whether it be something, a topic that you want to discuss, when you work with somebody, it's important to be there when you say you're going to be there. That's just something that I've learned, in not only in my personal life but especially in my professional life. Um, an uncle who was a mentor of mine many years ago um, said something that was profound to me, and that was, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, it doesn't matter. What matters is your word, making sure you keep up with your obligations and your relationships, because those are important. Um, but I will say this: about a couple of years ago, um, I met Cassandra Terry. She's the mindset coach, and one thing that she encouraged though was you you need to definitely live up to your obligations, but it can't be at the detriment to yourself. So just wanted to talk a little bit about that, um, kind of my mindset on things. I've got my hot cup of tea to kind of help with the stomach issue. And we'll get on. But yes, today we're talking about the second rule of engagement, and that is start with a hook. And because I'm a Pacific Islander, it's kind of important, uh, starting with a hook. That's, yeah. That's right. The second rule of engagement. So I'll read a little bit about it here. So every chapter, I start out with a quote, something that I've said in the past, something I've wrote down or written down, and the chapter starts out with start with a hook. It means crafting a captivating and intriguing opening that grabs the audience's attention and entices them to continue reading or listening. And really, that's important. You know, you want to be able to engage them, right, in such a way that's going to captive. I know you don't like that word, but uh, that's going to enlist their imagination into where you are, how you want to set the stage for the rest of the story. And it can be in a non-fiction story or a fiction story, right? So, and one of the things I learned was I really had to apply the lessons of engagement every step of the way when I wrote my book. Go figure, right? So anyway, um, I want to get uh, Ali in on this and um, ask him a little bit if what he thought about the chapter.
Well, um, sorry, I was a bit distracted. So, do you want? Is your question is trying to hook me on what do I think about the second rule of engagement, the hook?
Yes, yes,
Because
absolutely.
sometimes the hook needs to be again set up again, like the fish doesn't is not cooked at the first glance. So what I was thinking about this chapter is really essential because it's about captivating attention, and this word is really sometimes like let the audience choose. But at the same time, if the audience is not hooked, then the whole purpose of your message is flat. And so I was writing some words. I was also kept writing some captions, capturing hearts and minds. And for me, that's important. It's not only about the brain, it's about the heart. Because there is, I was not knowing this word before, prowess. I know process, but prowess, I don't know. So feel free to explain it to a non-native English speaker. But then surprise and delight, that's also something that is important. So feel free to unfold.
Yes, absolutely. So um, it's important that we understand the meaning of things, right? So I definitely can talk a little bit about it. So it's prowess is your skill or expertise. Where did Ali go? um,
I'm letting you the stage for a moment.
thank you. So there's really two definitions for prowess, and one of them is skill or expertise in a particular activity or field. And so if you need to have the skill of providing surprise and delight. Now there's a rule of engagement about surprise and delight, but I wanted to touch on it a little bit here because that's how you can engage your audiences and make sure that you provide that hook for them. So you provide a surprise, something that grabs their attention, right? And then delight is making them feel happy about that little bit of surprise. Um, you know, recently I talked about how a little nuance about how my grandmother took her coffee, and that little nuance was able to grab the attention of many people from many parts of the globe. And while I thought it was just a nuance, only Chamorro people or people from the Mariana Islands and Guam would understand, other people started to chime in and say, "Oh yeah, we used to do that all the time." And so the little nuance was my grandmother took her coffee with carnation milk in the can, not creamer, right? Or liquid creamer or the powdered creamer, right? When you make coffee sometimes at home, that's what you would use. Not my grandmother. My grandmother would use carnation milk. And the minute I spoke about that, other people started to chime in and relate and resonate with that. So the surprise can be on both ends. I can be surprised sometimes by the nuances I put in my stories. And then to see the delight, the happiness in the audience as I'm sharing this story. And now I've used it twice because now I'm talking about the story and what that little nuance has accomplished in connecting with audiences. So that's exactly what I mean when I talk about prowess and with surprise and delight.
Well, that's incredible because I wish there is a surprise in 10 or 15 or 20 minutes. And feel free, those who are watching right now or on the replay team, to ask any comment or any question, because it is really important to have also feedback from you about what do you want us to talk about, whether it's about now or if you are watching now, or if you are watching on the replay and you are already knowing the next chapters titles that I'm going to unfold anyway in this session. Feel free to add any remark, any comments, any delight. And so let me then go to my next caption. Pose a question, planting a seed of curiosity, and then spark intrigue, prompt your audience to lean in. Could you unfold that?
So when we're talking about making sure that we have the attention of the audience, right? We want to make sure that we're crafting a narrative that holds their attention. We were just talking about that. And really, when you look at, now I'm just going to bring up the book. I have it in my hands. So it's posing a question sometimes. And when you're posing a question, what you're doing is you're taking the attention of the audience, whether it be a live audience sitting in a crowd or an audience reading your manuscript or your story, and asking them a question so that they get drawn into the story. So if I asked, just like I did earlier with Ali, I said, what are your thoughts on the second chapter? And so you could do that in your story or in your narrative. Pose a question so that immediately the audience is drawn into the story, right? So you could be talking about, let's say, an investigative story, right? Where you have a detective trying to figure out who the killer is, right, in this story. And so you say, the detective, Ali, was asking one of the members in this scene, Jay, where he was at 12 p.m. And then you can go to the audience and say, do you recall? Can you recall where Jay was at 12 p.m.? And so now your audience is going, wait, where was he? Let me look. Let me go back into the story. And they're thumbing through the pages, trying to find out where he was at 12 p.m. You see, so these are the ways that you can make sure you immediately bring the audience into your story by posing a question.
I love it. I love it so much. Because it's about hooking with the brain, because I learned through neuroscience that when you ask a question, whether we are conscious or not, the brain is searching for an answer in the background. And I was learning that in a webinar. Was one or two persons on my journey, especially recently through the New Language Conference, that was using that trick uh, during his session. He was um, telling something, telling a story, then asking a question, and then he was telling, "Now I'm going to switch to go for another topic, let's say, but keep this question in mind." And of course, if the audience were really engaged, at the end of his talk was like, "And what about the question that you asked at the beginning?" So that was the hook, because it served the purpose. He was asking the question, then he was telling other things unfolding, and then the answer of the question was the grand finale of the purpose of his speech. Uh, and it was like a story. What happened to this guy? Let me tell you at the end of this session. So it was like planting the seed so that the person are engaged, because at some point they were expecting him to reply, to answer his question. So it's about planting a seed so that the audience is engaged until the end, because a question unresolved, the brain wants to have a reply. And so let me tell a story. I was discovering Louis Hay affirmations, and probably most of our audience knows about affirmations, sentences that envision a future but conjuged in the present tense. I am worthy. I will do that part. No, I'm going to do that. I am abundant. This kind of affirmation. And then someone was struggling because this person was not succeeding in life. He was trying, planting dozens and dozens of stickies on the wall. And then he was having an haha moment under the shower, because he was probably trying to wash himself and was not able to catch the soap, by the way. And he was thinking, what if I could do da 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 da? And so he was turning the affirmations to affirmations, replacing the I with the O, affirmations. And he turned the affirmations into questions, because he realized that when the brain is asked a question, the brain in the backseat is searching for an answer without our understanding. It's like thinking about something, really focused, not finding the solution, and then let me have a break, let me have a fresh air, going to the nature, and then the brain is working on the back seat without us being aware. And then out of the blue, from nowhere, especially breathing in the park, like fling, ooh, I have an idea. And that's the reply of the question that was turning on and on without us to be focused. And that's why at some point it's good to have a hook. And if the hook is not working, let's try to divert and to try something else. And at some point, the hook will come back. I'm pretty sure. And if the hook is not coming back, maybe we can suggest to go back to the hook, and then the it will be amazing. So that's my story. I was probably not as much jailicious as you are doing yourself, but now I'm going to have the caption emotional investment. That's something that I was liking so much, emotional investment. So I yield you the mic.
That's right. So think about it this way. There there are things that we all know as human beings all across the globe. And the things I'm talking about, especially in storytelling, is human emotion. Now, I grew up on Guam, on an island out in the middle of the Western Pacific, moved to Alabama. And that's usually the premise for the chapters in the rules of engagement in storytelling, is to show the differences, but also the similarities in where I grew up and where I'm now living. And to do that, there's got to be an emotional investment on my part. But once I do that, then now I'm calling on the audience to also become invested in the story as well. If I know pain, if I know suffering, if I know love, if I know empathy, then my audience, too, as human beings, should understand those emotions. So, doing so, bringing the emotion into each story allows the audience to then put themselves in that position, knowing what that feels like. Oh man, there's a death of a character in this book. I want to tell Renee, my wife, all about it because I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to lose a loved one. And it's got me crying reading this story. Oh my gosh. So that investment may start with the author or with the storyteller, but the payoff and the return on that investment is when the audience then also too becomes invested. So go ahead.
Well, yes, exactly. And about Hook, it was so tempting to talk about the movie of the same name
Yes.
from with Robin
Oh my
Williams.
goodness. Yes.
And there is a lot of things to talk about this movie. And of course, it I think this movie is so ancient that I but spoil a lot, but I think I can spoil because it's a movie that is already 30 years old, 30 plus years old. And one of the scene, because there are many scenes that were capturing emotions, and one of the scene that was really breaking my heart was when they were fighting Captain Hook. And then one of the character received a dagger and died. And I recall it was in the early 90s that I was watching this movie for the first time. I was an adolescent. And for me, it was really heartbreaking because this is a place where children are living eternally. You see Robin Williams going back. So he was living his life like 40, 50 years old, and he comes back, and the characters are all children. There are also the characters of adults with Captain Hook, but the characters are with children and adolescents. And at some point, one of the characters died in the movie. And for me, it was like, wow, 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 wow. And so emotional investment in that scene for me, I was crying. I was crying. Another example, because I have some other examples. In the end, at the end of the 90s, was a movie that is one of my favorites. AI from Steven Spielberg. Many movies that I was capturing emotions, but this one, oh my goodness. Emotional investment were 300%. Why? Because not only about the narrative of the modern times of Pinocchio, you know, the boy that is not human, and that wants to become a little boy, a little human, like every other boy. But also at the end, and I will also spoil because it's a movie that is more now 25 years old, or and at the end, the world is on ice. Like 2,000 years come past, and the boy is discovered, and he's telling, "Where is mom? Where is mom?" And I'm sorry, your mom is already gone because it was 2,000 years ago. And then the hook was, but there is a way to revive it. Here is her hair. Because the machine teddy bear were collecting hair of his mom. And please revive it, please revive it. I was like hooked. And then the mom was there again in the movie. Yet the challenge was that the boy was granted 1 day, 24 hours or so with his mom. And at that time, my mom, and I'm sure that you relate because you lost yours also. I lost mine when I was not 13 years old. And so there is a great chance that I'm not going to cry if I see the movie, but there is also a great chance that I'm going to cry again because it captures emotion. Even 35 years later, it captures emotion of me, the little boy, uh, enjoying laughing with his mom, and yet knowing that at the end of the day, she will sleep and never wake up. So that was my second example. Feel free to hook on that, my friend.
Right. Really, it was a great story. So AI, the movie AI, artificial intelligence. Um, the the thing about that movie was at the core of the movie is an artificial intelligence wanting to be loved, right? And the lengths in which he sought that love, even as an artificial intelligence with the curiosity of a child, right? you're right. This is the modern version of the story of Pinocchio. I just want to be a real boy. So what does that mean? And that really is and so that question centers on emotional intelligence. And having that will allow you to delve deep into that story. So emotions really play a part in ensuring that there's that connection between you and your audience. Because we all know what that means. Whether, you know, I'm from Guam in the middle of the Western Pacific, or you're a person who lives in Belgium, or you're somebody who lives maybe in Bangalore, India. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. As a human being, you know what emotions are: sadness, joy, love, all of the things. So, yeah, uh, Steven Spielberg, not only does he have a way with visual storytelling, the core of the story really is about someone seeking love. And that emotion we all know, even as a child, right? The curiosity of that. We understand what that is. So, brilliant.
Thank you, Jay. And before I yield the mic to Yadishwarji, thank you, Kevin, also for joining. Extra love, yes. The Tinkerbells of LinkedIn, brilliant. Wow. Surfing your share as best as I can. Okay, cool. So thank you, dear Kevin. And now I yield the mic to Yadishwarji that I'm going to unmute. Welcome, Yadishwarji.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey,
My
that's
baby.
our
Yeah, my
hook.
baby Siri.
Cool. Welcome, Yadishwarji. How are you feeling today, my friend?
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
See? Yes.
What a beautiful hook. So, how are you feeling today, Yadishwarji? Thank you so much for joining on stage. And everyone, feel free to join the stage. I placed the link on LinkedIn, on
I'm fine.
YouTube.
What about you?
Super fine.
Super fine.
So, yeah. So the rule of let's say the session of today is the rule of engagement
Yeah,
number two,
today is
which is the yeah the start with a hook. So, do you have any question related to the hook, Mr. Yadish Vaji? You have the great chance to ask a question to the one and only Mr. J. So, if you have a question, it's no, if you choose so. Oh, you are unmuted, so you can talk, Yadish Vaji.
yeah.
So, what's your insights or your questions about the rule number two, the hook? Well, it's a good example to know if a hook is working or not, I think.
No, no, no. My baby is.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's
So,
not working, the
No,
hook.
no, no, no. My baby disturbed. No.
Yeah, yeah. Your baby is your hook.
Yeah, seeing of my talking.
Oh,
yes.
what a beautiful princess. So, do you have a question? What is your name?
Yeah, Siri, Siri, Siri.
Okay. Ah, yeah,
Siri.
yeah. So ask
Yeah,
Siri. Ask Siri. Ask Siri what
yeah.
is
I
if she has any
I
question.
know nothing you are seeing on the.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that Siri was our hook. And probably we will ask also ChatGPT. No, I'm just joking. So sorry for that, but it's so tempting to hook with that. So if you have any, not any other question, if you have question, feel free to join the chat or. So Mr. J, I'm going to move forward because we have a hook to catch because there is so much things to going on. Because I was also so imagination, critical thinking, and creative expression. Can you tell us more?
There's a very corny line that I used to ask people. And the line was, what is the most powerful nation in the world? Right. And people would usually think, oh, maybe it's the United States or maybe it's the UK or, these places, right? And I said, no, it's the imagination, right? Because if you can think about it, then maybe we can bring whatever you're imagining to life. And, you had a really, very witty, but very philosophical retort. And that was, oh, but what about procrastination? What about, those other words with the nation at the end, right? And you're right. Those things can just have as much power, especially in a story. But when you're trying to engage and hold the attention of others, if we can help them imagine being in the scene or being in the story, right, then we're able to really get them to be a part of the story. And that's what you want. You want them to resonate with it so much that they've placed themselves within the story. And then critical thinking comes in. Now, if we're talking about, especially things where we're talking about current events, and we want them to understand maybe a message, how can we help them get there? And that's through critical thinking, getting them to understand certain aspects of your story from various different perspectives, right? And when you do that, you get them to think, you get them to understand the various nuances of the story that you're trying to relay. And then creative expression, how we get them there, how we bring about the imagination in our audience, how we get them to think critically, really is it depends on how we express our creativity. Are we creative enough to bring them into the story with the imagination that they already have and the thoughts of how does this impact me? How does this impact the world? How does it impact those around me? Right. And so if we're able to do that, then our job as a storyteller in that moment is really important. And we're able to do that in such a way that it does resonate with our audience. Right. it's I know it kind of sounds cyclical or circular, um, but really that's what it is. When you start off making sure that they are imagining that they're part of the story, and then you get them to think critically about the story, you as a creator have then allowed them to become part of the story. And so you really already have hooked them. Creative expression.
Yes, yes. And that's why one of my first ever story when I was a kid was to read books where you are the hero. Books where you don't write from page 1 to page 300, but they prepare you for an adventure. Like you have a dice and you have a sheet of paper because you have to write things. What items you are going to collect, what monsters you are going to fight, and what path. If you want to go to the left, go to number 125. If you want to go to the right, you go to 77. And it's like building an adventure and not writing a book on a linear basis, but going to different paths, different sections, monsters, losing or gaining experience or HP or items, or that's the hook of the storytelling, and that's really incredible. And with that, I am also shifting with communal engagement. This is so important in storytelling, to feel included. So that's why I'm also telling dear Yadish Varji, feel free if you have any question to pour into the chat, and I'm going to give you the stage. But in the meantime, Mr. J, communal engagement. That's something that I would like to know more.
Absolutely. I want to go back a little bit though, to what you were just talking about. I think really, yes, communal engagement really is about making sure that everybody is included in that story. And I'm going back to what we were talking about earlier. How we do that is through those emotions that we all know universally. And if we know that, somebody may not understand the sport of baseball, right? From their point of view, cricket is is something more they resonate with than they do baseball. But at the core of the story, what does it mean? Why are we talking about baseball? What's the story about? Are we talking about the athlete and the struggles that they encountered? Because whether you're a cricket athlete or whether you're a baseball athlete, you had to develop your body in such a way that you are able to run through the rigors of that sport. And if you know that as an athlete, then that can resonate whether you're a cricket or a baseball fan or athlete. You know what that's like. Being an athlete, trying to hone your skills, trying to make sure your body is fit enough to do the job that it needs to do to be able to win at this sport. We know what that's like, right? So gaining your audience's attention by bringing them into the story and being a part of this community really is about, again, going back to that emotion and tapping into those things that we all understand and know. And we can do that on a mass scale, reaching people, an entire audience of athletes, even if it's something about baseball and not cricket. Does that make sense, Ali?
Yes, exactly, and that's why it's important to take care about that aspect, to include people, because we don't want to have crickets like big.
Oh, I used to be able to.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I don't know, but it's okay. but it's really a challenging sometimes. Point, I'm going also to pour some love to you because I love your language, and I was watching also the part that is Fakmata, if I pronounce it well.
Yes, you did. It's actually pretty good. Yeah. So, Fakmata, you may not understand the words, right? But if I perform Fakmata, you, what I used to gain from the feedback from the audience was that I didn't understand the words, but I understood the passion behind those words, the actions and the I guess the actions that I included when I'm performing the chant made them feel like I was talking about something so passionate that it meant so much to me that I wanted to share it with everyone. Um, and then, of course, finally, when I translated it into English, they were like, "Oh, now I know what he was saying," and so now I understand why he was so passionate because I know the words now, right? So I thought it would be really fitting to put that in the book where I would share it in my language, but also share it in English and to talk about it. And so people were able to understand when I did the translation why I thought this was such a poignant piece to share with people. So Fakmata means to wake up. And as a cultural practitioner of the Chamorro language and chants, as a cultural practitioner, really, I wanted people to wake up and be just as passionate as I am about preserving, promoting, protecting, and perpetuating the Chamorro culture and heritage. Get the same sense of passion, invoke that in them so that they either become an advocate or because they are Chamorro, have that same passion to do exactly what I've been trying to accomplish. So, yes, Fakmata is really an important example of trying to communicate something that I'm so passionate about. And hopefully it can resonate with others. Yeah.
Wow. And indeed, and when you are doing your Saturdays storytelling with Jay and friends, when you are really giving us the gift of your stories, of you speaking your language, as always, and it's always the case, it's like for me seeing in the abyss a submarine volcano expulsing hidden matters from the earth, like, and that's really the profoundness of the groundness of the earth going to surface, expressing your language, expressing your identity. And I was loving, by instance, the word invoke because I was searching, and it's the word invoke in Latin from invocare, which means to call upon or to appeal to. A combination of in, meaning upon, and vocare, meaning to call, like voce. And so invoke, that's the meaning of calling upon an higher power, a principle, or an idea for guidance or support. To call, to also evoke. So we invoke and then we evoke. And I love the languages, by the way. I love the words. I love, and I see a lot of heart on the audience. Thank you so much for watching us, and feel free to join the stage. There is a link, and to interact with us, to bring your comments. So, by instance, I was seeing also some comments from Kevin, and now Yadish Warji that is still on stage. So, feel free also if you are ready to share Yadish Warji, because we have the richness to hear you. And of course, of Millie. Thank you, Millie, that totally agrees. Evoke the passion so that they can take ownership. So now I'm going to call upon Yadish Varji if you have any thoughts about what we expressed. Here is your mic. If you can speak.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, my papa is a comedian.
yeah. So, what are your thoughts, dear Yadish Vaji?
Yeah, good one. Yeah, come again. Come again. Your different, yeah,
Yes.
different language is very good. Yeah, your program, yeah, my, yeah, 12. This is talking.
Mm,
Mm,
yeah, thank you.
yeah,
Do you have any question for Mr.
good.
J? That's me trying to invoke something. So, if you don't have any question, thank you so much for your engagement. That's really dear to our hearts. What are your thoughts, dear Jay, when you see these amazing two angels watching us and engaging with us right now?
Yeah, I think despite a language barrier, I think that what I think this is kind of a good example, right? Even though we may not be able to communicate effectively through English or um, another language, right? They know that we're here to share a message, and so he shows up. And for him, his message is, one of being a proud papa, right? And showing the love and care for somebody in his family. And so it goes back to that emotional intelligence. We may not understand each other per se, but the fact that he wants to show that he's a proud papa is part of that emotional intelligence. So as an audience, right, of what he's doing, I'm seeing that he wants to share that he's a loving papa and that he's there to support his family. And he may not understand the words per se, like we do, but he knows that we are sharing a message with the world and he wants to share his message. So that's what I'm thinking about right now.
Thank you so much. So, Mr. Yadish Valji, do you have a message to this world that he's watching us?
No, no, nothing. Yeah, my baby
Okay.
tomorrow birthday. Siri birthday tomorrow.
Oh,
And now
happy
we
birthday,
have
Siri.
Hi,
another one engaging on stage. Welcome, Millie.
welcome, Millie. Hi.
Hello.
Did you have a question?
Welcome, Millie. Welcome on stage. So feel free to present yourself if you like.
Hello.
Hello, Millie. Welcome. And
Thank you.
who is Millie? I'm really happy to know more about you.
No, I'm just curious.
Okay.
Well, I am a.
So
Can you hear me?
Yes.
yes, go ahead.
Yes, I love the rules of engagement in storytelling. So that's why I'm here. I am a
Oh, awesome.
I am a passionate. Yeah, so we're having some delay in talk, but I just wanted to join and listen.
Okay. Yeah, I just can I ask you? I just want to ask a question, Millie. Do you read a lot of books, a lot of stories, and what intrigues you, or what do you love about the books or the stories that you read? I know there may be a delay, so I just want to make sure that we give you some space to also kind of give your thoughts.
Well, I love storytelling because nothing engages the human brain like storytelling. And because I'm a change agent, I believe in when people can connect to whatever they're doing and own it. When people can connect and own their process and share, then there will be change in our world. That's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And really, that's what I've learned, especially through my Saturdays at Storytime with Jay and friends. That time, I know I talk about my culture and my heritage a lot, but in doing so, I encourage others to share their heritage and their culture and their stories with me. And from that, because again, we know what human emotion is, because you're a change agent, you know this, right? That when we share our stories, a lot of times we see the similarities in ourselves, in our humanity, more so than we see the differences that are already present. And so I think stories in that regard can be effective in helping people realize that there's an opportunity in change.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I was also seeing the narrative device and the emotional impact that our stories, our share could have. And that's really important that everyone has a voice. That's why I'm really blessed to see you, Millie, and to see you, Yadish Raji, engaging on stage. This is the summum of the happiness to be able to see that we can also give you a voice. It's not only about my story or Jay's story. It's also about Millie's story and Yadishvaji's story, because the more we are sharing our respective stories, the more we are able to see the oneness in each of us. So at some point, feel free, Millie or Yadishvalji, to share. Um, And then I was thinking also about the pitfalls of weak hooks that when a hook is missed, then there are missed opportunities for the audience to engage and to relate, and we lose audiences. And that's why I am really blessed that even if we didn't have a large read right now, that you both came on stage. That I think the a testimony of Jay's superpower to gather together through the willing to share stories. So Millie is back right now. Enfin, he's gone. But Yadish Valji, feel free to share your story if you choose so. So I'm give you the mic.
Okay, good night. Thank you.
Okay, good night. That was
Yeah, my baby, good
a
night.
great
Your
story.
happy birthday issue now. One
Yeah,
song, please,
okay.
baby.
One song.
Ah,
Alors, I'm going to give you a song in French.
yeah.
Fais dodo, cola mon petit frère, fais dodo, t'auras du gâteau. Papa est en haut, il fait du gâteau. Maman est en bas, il fait du chocolat. Fais dodo, cola mon petit frère, fais dodo, t'auras du gâteau. Or in
Yeah,
that
thank you,
case, it's
thank you.
like
Yeah,
cola,
thank
ma
you,
petite
thank you,
sœur.
thank you,
Yeah,
thank you, thank you, thank you.
that's
Kiss,
a
kiss me.
thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Ah, so that was a lullaby in French, and of course it would be Cola, ma petite sœur, because it's her daughter, Fred, the boy, and sister is the girl. So what a blessing, you know. We had an audience, but of course we are not Tony Robbins, so we don't have an audience of hundreds and hundreds of people. And seeing people engaging and going on stage, that's already incredible. So I think even though we have not a lot of audience, we also have to realize there is also the replay one. The replay team is welcome also to comment or to ask questions. And so I'm happy also for Millie and for Yadish Valji to join us. And we will keep going. So right now we are on the top of the hour, and I will probably have 5 to 10 more minutes if you choose so, Mr. J,
Yeah.
because I would like to turn this shift to some examples. Like, what are the differences between typhoons in Guam and tornadoes in US?
Right. So I thought that this would be also a really good example. See, we know in the Western Pacific typhoons, it's where we located, it's called Typhoon Alley because the winds from Asia mixes with the winds from South America that would, depending on the year, the La Nina or La Nino, right, with the Asian air, the warm air meeting the cold air. And so those two factions meeting together causes storms, the rotation. And so it comes to Guam during the rainy season, and we we experience typhoons. And now it can last anywhere from 24 to 72 hours, right? The first part of the storm coming in, and then the tail end of the storm as it goes away. And being a tiny island, those winds can have a devastating effect. but it lasts for a very long time. Tornadoes come in from one storm system and maybe last a few minutes. And so there's a difference there. But the types of winds in a tornado, just that those few seconds or a few minutes can actually be much more devastating. So there's those differences in just the weather phenomenon, but the aftermath of each storm, whether it be a typhoon or a tornado, I know what that's like coming from Guam. I know what that's like now being here in Alabama. Now, trying to get back on your feet, making sure that you have a job to go to, all those things, right, may be a little different. But the human aspect of it, how we respond or how we react to these different disasters, we all know based on our emotions again, right? I'm a man who's a husband trying to make sure my children have a roof over their head, clothes on their back, food on the table, a way to get to school, all of those things, right? And whether you're dealing with the aftermath of a typhoon or a tornado, we all know what that's like from that perspective. And so talking about the differences in the weather phenomenon is important to set the stage, but ultimately the human being trying to cope with that natural disaster is how that story is going to resonate with your audience.
Exactly. And that's why I will also highlight the VEAM. It's an acronym I found from visual, emotion, memorability, and engagement. And so it's also to, if the audience never experienced a tornado or typhoon, you can try to bring some visuals to gather emotions and to foster memorability. And that's why I never until now experienced a typhoon or tornado, but I've watched movies. And of course, they are forcing the traits. There are probably, what we will live in the next years or decades was in a movie for 2 hours, like the day after tomorrow, where all of a sudden, in few days of time, Earth came crazy. And it's happening right now on the world, yet it takes months and years. But if we are not paying attention, it will take months or weeks, because Earth is going to be crazy, is already crazy more and more. But the amplitude will be crazier in 30, 50 years if we don't pay attention about the consequences of our actions towards the environment. So visual, emotion, memorability, engagement. Do we have any thoughts about that?
Sure. Visual, we're talking about showing, not just telling, right? And how do you do that when you're writing a book or when you're talking about it? So let me tell you, let me give you a quick example. I was at my sister-in-law's house trying to make sure my children were safe. I told them to stay in the center of the hallway. We didn't have a basement or a storm shelter. I stood there outside and I looked to the back of the house and I did not see a funnel cloud. I just saw a wall of black clouds. But something in me and something outside of me said, there's a tornado. The words in my mind were, it's here. And I didn't believe it. I ran into the house. I threw open the curtains and I looked back at that ridge where I saw the black clouds. And in that moment, my sister-in-law comes out and she says, what are you doing? And out of my mouth, before I knew what I was saying, I said the words that I heard, which was, it's here. And she said, nuh-uh. She opened the door, and in that moment, a gust of wind blew in. She slammed it and she started screaming, it's here, it's here. And we ran to the hallway. And I gathered my kids and I put myself on top of them like this. And I said, Lord, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen to me. And I looked at my sister-in-law's bedroom. The door was open. And I heard a loud boom. And in that time, just a few seconds, the roof came up and the walls imploded. I closed my eyes and I thought I was dead. Because when I opened my eyes, it was dark. And I could not stand up. Because the debris of the house, the trusses, fell on top of me. And I had to tell my kids and my sister-in-law to crawl out from underneath where we were. So in that example, I'm sharing with you blow by blow, step by step, what was going on. And you could see that in your mind's eye, right? You could imagine that. So that's how you do that. And I also shared my emotion, right? Emotion and like, I thought I was dead, right? So sharing that, you feel that emotion. And now because of the severity of what was going on, now your brain and your heart are attached to that piece of the story because it's so traumatic. How could somebody experience that? It becomes memorable. And then lastly, because of all those three things, the audience is now engaged.
Wow, thank you, thank you. It's really emotional. Thank you for your vulnerability to share, and I was feeling your emotions, and at the same time, it takes a while also to be able to express it without being ourselves caught, and it is an incredible challenge sometimes. Because at some point I can share my story and I will most of the time cry because I'm cooked with my own emotions. So when we tell our story, that's also a challenge for us because it's about going through our emotions and digest. Because if we are not able to tell the rest of the story because we are caught with our own emotions, then the hook cannot happen because we are hooked ourselves with our own emotions. And so um, I leave out there because I was preparing myself to tell my own story, but I feel like emotional right now just on thinking about what I'm going to share. So I'm not. It's also to have the intelligence to choose the story that will convey the hook of an audience without being hooked ourselves, because it's to be the observer. And sometimes we have still emotional ourselves to tell. And during I don't know if it was during our previous session or during the Saturday Jay and Friends, but at some point we were sharing something, and I really felt you were really caught on emotion. Really, I felt your emotions. And thank you, Jay. Last but not least, but it will be for another time, the example of Coca-Cola, Apple, and Nike. And then the hook for the third rule will be establish a connection with our audience. That's really important. So I will let you pour your words of conclusion for this session about the third rule that will occur next week. What could we expect of the third rule? Establish a connection.
So with the third rule, right, it's what goes into connecting with the audience. I look at it like alchemy, right? How do we pull everything together? It's a little bit of magic and a little bit of science, right? But the other part is embracing narratives that are diverse, right? Diversity. You know, it's become a bad word here, I guess, in the States lately, with a bunch of movements by especially social media to divest themselves of their diversity, equity, and inclusion departments. Um, but we shouldn't fear diversity, right? We should embrace it because, especially in storytelling, diversity helps us reach broader audiences, right? If we are, if I was just thinking about reaching Chamorro people, people from Guam and the Mariana Islands, with my message, then Storytime with Jay and Friends would be an audience of one, me. um, because of the time zones and differences and stuff like that. A lot of people are not from Guam or the Mariana Islands. So I embrace that though. I don't fear it. And because of it, I'm better. And the audience that listens to this, I think, have become better for it. They're able to see a different perspective, see a different culture through my stories. And I think that's important, especially in storytelling. And so when we talk about establishing a connection, that's what I'm talking about. And we're going to delve into that next week. So the rules of engagement in storytelling, it's available now on Amazon. Um, just a little bit of behind the scenes. I want you to know that it may be available in stores. I'm working with an organization and we'll see if that's going to be possible. I know that I'm also trying to get it onto Google and Apple as well. So we can have it in another digital format for people to take advantage of. So, I know that there are a lot of places out there that may not have access to Amazon. So we'll see what we can do. I'm working on it. And lastly, www.ruleyourstory.com. Check
I
that
will
out.
post
That's
this
my,
link in the comments.
yes. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
With
All
joy
right.
to pour
Gotta
some
go.
love to Mr. J. Yeah, thank you, Jay. Thank you. And so the rules of engagement, feel free to scan the QR code to discover this amazing book. And keep shining, everyone.